All right, well, tell you what, it's been a little while since I had all the production gear out together, and I've made it all the way to Flamingo today. It is beautiful, beautiful summer day, so I'm hoping that there is a flipping bite. I do. You know, on a recent trip here, I had quite an encounter catching a bunch of snook on a lure that's designed for bass fishing, really. But you know, that's always a relative term. You know, we kind of get pigeonholed as fishermen in our mindset that a certain kind of bait catches a certain kind of fish, and therefore you can't do anything else with that bait or catch anything else. As a matter of fact, I've got a host of baits, including topwater, Sexy Shad by Strike King. I've got that bass jig I was showing you. This is my Strike King half-ounce swimming jig. You can see it right there. That's on 50-pound mono ultra premium soft steel. And then of course, the whole outfit here that I love to use for flipping. This is the Serrano 7'3" heavy action rod by Akuma, and it's a dandy. And there's my Citrix reel that I use. That's the big left-hander right there. I love this. You talk about a winch. It really cranks those fish. The water might be up a little bit, and if so, then I'm going to be able to take this jig, and just like a bass fisherman, I'm going to be able to penetrate cover, because the snook, they'll sit in an ambush position just like a largemouth. So no better bait than a weedless jig, and buddy, they will slam it. Now, it takes a little bit of a different presentation than most, you know, people with a spinning rod can do. Now, it's not impossible, but the precision that's allowed by the Serrano Citrix combo by Akuma, it's precise, because you can stop it on a dime, and when you do get that big bite, you've got a powerful tool to get it out of that cover. And as you can see, this line right here is all frayed, but it's still very strong. So there's a certain amount of frayness, so to speak, that I allow on the line, and you can feel it when it's too much. But if you're a person that wants to change it every time you feel a fray, I don't blame you. Here in the Florida Keys, it seems like everything has teeth, so everything's fraying your line. So I've just learned the tolerance level of allowing a certain amount of fray. So I want to get next to this shoreline. I'm going to work that cover. You can see there's a lot of wood in the background on that shoreline. Also too, we have a wind that's blowing into that shoreline, so therefore it might be creating a little bit of biological activity that's keeping a feeding pattern either going or positioning fish to feed at some point. So the neat thing about the jig is that they'll take the snack a lot of times when you just present it to them, even if they weren't in a feeding mode. They might not come out in this open water and hit it, but where they're resting for the afternoon on the couch with that snack bowl right next to them, well, this is going to be that snack bowl. I'm going to put it where they don't have to go too far. And you never know, heck, they might be feeding like crazy out here. Normally, if they are, you'll see a lot of bait jumping around and other things happening. So I've got the point of view camera, got this one rolling. It's good to have everything out. And let's see what we can get into. Let me exercise my line. Now this baby is ready to roll. Ready to roll. Okay. Great thing about a swimming jig, aside from the fact that it's weedless with a brush guard, is the fact that when you combine it with your trailer, like I'm using, which is a Z-Man Minnow Z. Oop, little tap there. You get this great swimming action. on a steady retrieve, just like that. I've got a lot of snook just doing that. A lot of fish, period. The tail action is just great. Got stained water conditions, actually more like muddy water. So I just use this little moment right here to find if there's a offshore feeding pattern off the shore. Didn't want to make it sound like I was in the ocean. We ain't far from the Gulf of Mexico. Great transition right here where we have a outcropping point. It's going back into a recessed area. The water thins up right here, and in the length of a cast, I'll be able to get to several different types of transitions, and I'll be able to do it at distance. Also, one of the great things about throwing a 1/2 ounce on this Serrano Citrix combo, I've got some incredible distance. I can throw well over, depending on conditions, well over 100 feet with this heavier outfit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swim this swim jig just up through these high percentage areas. Yeah, you can see the boat's getting a little bit of a turn right there because of the current. The current's just right too. Starting to fall, so obviously everything's starting to want to position itself. Look at the accuracy right there. I don't know what you're able to see. There's a tap right there. All right. All right. All right. Okay. There he is again. Okay. All right. We're getting a bite right here. All right. They're in there. It didn't take long. Let's see if I can position the boat a tiny bit better. Don't feel like any kind of a big fish, but one more time right there, and easy. And we had 2 strikes, but they were just more like pecks. Keep in mind too, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a snook. It could be a ladyfish, it could be anything. But I have another tool in the box, and I'm gonna share that with you what it is. It's the one thing about Okuma. The tools that they have that you put in your toolbox as a fisherman, second to none. This one right here, this is great. This is a 7-foot medium heavy shadow stalker with the 40S Azores reel. Got my Z-Man Minnow Z right there, and it's got a great action to it. You know, a lot of springiness in the end, but the backbone, you can see it right there on the point of view camera where that the rod is loading up, but the backbone right there to fight a big fish exists. So, but this is something right here that I swim a little different, and you know, that's one thing you can't be afraid of. You can't be afraid to throw this stuff into cover. So this is an exposed hook, and a lot of times folks get really concerned about throwing an exposed hook into cover. Here we go, right there. Yeah, okay. All right, all right, all right. And you can see what we got. Look at that. And what do we have? Just a beautiful, beautiful Florida Keys snook. How about that, folks? How about that on cue? Well, we're about a dozen casts or so into this moment, and we are looking at a beautiful fish. Look at that fish. Is that just a beautiful fish? That makes me say woohoo. And I mean, just made a cast or 2 with that. That's a beautiful male. Something interesting about the Florida Keys snook is that they're born male. And at about 4 years of age, or 24 inches or so, they become a female. So this one here is slightly under 24 and is part of the male population. Then at about 24 inches or 4.5, 5 years of age, they become female. Let's get this beautiful fish back into the water. Right there, well, there you go. How about that? Well, you see, having tools in the toolbox right there, an important concept to understand. I made a couple casts with my penetrating bait, a bait that I could throw into cover and not have near the concern because I don't have an open hook. But, you know, if you want to catch fish, you got to live on the edge. That's one thing I enjoyed about fishing with Rob. When we first started fishing, he didn't throw a bait caster, and he's since picked it up and he's doing extremely well with it. But he really could he can, but at the time he was handling a spinning outfit without fear. I mean, he would throw this bait up into the nastiest, but you know what he was doing? He was catching fish, where most people would be a little bit concerned about throwing a bait like this into the cover, and I get it. But you know, baits can be worked through covers if you understand the design of your jig head, you understand the design of the bait, the fall rate, understanding your equipment. And this is one more time why the tools that are made by Okuma, for me, I've used a lot of gear and I've used a lot of fabulous gear, but there's not been a combination from outfit to outfit to outfit that has the performance factor that I would rate the Okuma gear. The Okuma gear is simply for me, for my purposes and my application, it's the best that I've ever used. And I'll tell you what, you saw that right there. That bite was really just quick. I had to get the fish out of there. And you know, I threw it on the front side. Oh, look at there, another bite. Okay. So, you see where I threw that bait right there. Make sure everything's good with that. He folded the bait up right there. All right, guys, let's see if we can catch a couple more. All right, this fish might be just on the front side. Oh. Yeah, here we go. There he is right there. Man, that's another little small snook, but look at that. All right, look at that. Tools in the box. Look at that, another beautiful fish. Let me catch you right there. I don't like to touch it like that too often, but look at that. Beautiful, small, little Florida Keys backcountry snook caught on that Inspired fishing gear made by Okuma. Let's just keep on casting and see what happens here. What's happening is that water's coming around that corner and it's pushing right there on that structure, but it's creating a slight little backflow. I can see the water moving differently right there. I don't know that the camera is picking up. They might be on the backside. It could very well be, but there might be just that ambush in the very first thing that swims around that corner. And now, I do catch both of those fish, obviously the bigger one, but even the little one, I do catch them on that jig. But, you know, obviously there's different colors involved, there's different weights involved, and there he is right there. All right, gotta get him up. Ooh, yeah, that was great right there. I got him around that corner. Look at there, huh? Look at there. That's another nice one right there. Tell you what, Lord, look at that. Look how he gobbled that right there. You see the way that he ate that right there too, up top. That shows you feeding upwards, waiting for something and ambushing it. Beautiful fish, beautiful fish. Not bad, we're having some fun, aren't we? All right, that's 3. Let's see what else we got. I noticed the cast had to be a little bit closer. And I was able to get that fish just around that edge. There's protruding structure under the water that you're not seeing. And the great thing about fishing muddy water, which drives people nuts, is because, you know, we can't see them, especially here in the Florida Keys. Everybody loves to see the fish, the target, and cast to it, and see the take and everything. And I'm all about that too when I can do it. But here, ain't gonna be the issue. Gotta be quick now. You gotta be ready for there. Gotta be ready. That's one thing when you make this cast, you've got to be ready. You've got to get your tools ready. You can't sit there and milk it. You're gonna have to get that fish out of there. If not, he's gonna get you. That cast right there, I don't think is the one. I think we're gonna have to get a little tiny bit closer. But by taking our bass jig, penetrating the cover, getting a couple bites, swapping over to a different tool, my goodness gracious, that's how you do it. I love it. Let's see what's on the other side here.